Armored Core Lore, the story of Armored Core 4 and For Answer, Part 1. The story begins 7 years before the National Dismantlement War, with an Earth much like our own. Only technology is more advanced, and with the population growing rapidly. The planet is much like our own, with corporations looking to make money, the governments trying to please the people, and the people making a life for themselves. Among these people would be a researcher, who to this day seems to have been wiped from history, who would discover a new particle in the South Pole. This miracle particle opened the doors for corporations like Akavit, based in Canada, who had once started to research and design technologies to use this particle that seemed to advance their military technology to far beyond what was on offer at the time. That being, at the time, the use of normals and muscle tracers. These are best described as the first humanoid-style machines of war, with normals being more human-like, with arms and legs and able to carry weapons, while muscle tracers are best seen as labour machines modified for war or turrets with legs. However, with Kojima technology, the next step to these would be huge machines of war that would come to be known as Nexts. Large, powerful machines of war that could be customized with weapons, so large a helicopter would be needed to simply lift it into the hands of these machines. They would come with armour thicker than anything on offer, and a new shielding technology that would make machine gun fire of MTs and normals bounce off it. However, the design and production of these super machines of war would take years and be done in secret. No government on Earth would know of their production. However, other corporations would not be so blind. For soon other corporations like Omir Science Technology, a West Asian military company, would start to dive into this research too. A secret information war would begin between the three, as they sought to discover what their rivals had built or discovered. This information, however, would not take long to slip into the hands of other corporations, who also began to build and research these new superweapons. It's during this time of Next research that a professor by the name of Janefeld would come up and design the new piloting system for these Nexts, during his time working for a research institute by the name of Aspina. The allegorical manipulation system, a system where the pilot's nerves are wired or linked into the Next electronics, allowing for lightning-fast reaction time and perfect manipulation of the parts. This, along with the integrated regular system, the centralized AC control system, stored within the craft's head, this computer would process the data output from the AMS to turn electronic signals into data, then fill in the gaps in the pilot's command, and then relay them to the parts. The IRS also handled the data from the AC's camera and eye sensors. It was this man's team that pushed Next beyond this idea of them simply being upgraded normals, and made these superweapons something now not any soldier or pilot could jump into and use. The reason for this is the new system required its use to be compatible with it, otherwise these Nexts would simply become lumbering, stuttering and highly ineffective. As such, Aspina would become the first to test this technology, with help from their sponsor, Omir Science, and become experts on this new system. However, this discovery could not be kept hidden for long, as soon other corporations caught on. The information war between corporations would not let any discovery slip. As such, Aspina would soon find corporations paying for this technology for their own Nexts. Aspina, like any institute, went along with this, some even claiming it hid the research from governments, or simply had Omir Science encourage them to keep this technology this way. It would lead to years passing, with the total number of Nexts rising. The world, however, was not thriving. For during these years, the Earth experienced a period of rapid population growth, which put a strain on global food and energy supplies. The gap between the wealthy and the poor became more and more, with poorer families unable to feed their children, keep themselves warm, or enjoy life. It quickly led to unrest. Protests and peaceful actions, however, did nothing, as Earth governments tried to reassure its people would be fixed, or simply ignored the cries of these people. In the end, violence began to erupt, and the governments quickly lost control of their populations as their cities were consumed by terrorism and anarchy. No one was safe. Looting of stores and the killing of law officials became more and more common as people turned on each other. In the end, scared for their lives and seeing this as their only option, people began to turn to the corporations complete with their private armies to keep them safe from the chaos. To the people, these corporations became their last hope, but the 6 largest corporations at this time, Global Armaments of America, Iqbal, the Bernard and Felix Foundation, Leo Mechanica, Ray Leonard and Rosenthal, they all saw this as an opportunity. The governments of the world had failed, and people were desperate. It was the perfect time to rise up and take power for themselves, and they did. Launching a full-scale war on the nations of the world, which would become known as the National Dismantlement War, the corporations were ruthless as using their private armies, supported by nexts, the corporations obliterated the forces of the nations and declared victory in less than a month. With the nations of the world toppled, the corporations set out to work on a new system of government. This new era of government would become known as the Pax Economica, economic peace, where loyalty and service to the corporations guaranteed food and survival. However, behind this fancy name, the truth is the people of Earth were forced into corporate-run colonies, where they would become slaves serving wealthy corporate masters with hard manual labor, with no unions or health and safety to protect them. These new rulers of Earth rationed the resources and food to the people, as they could not trust the population to turn on them like their governments before. However, it is among these colonies that one remained independent, the home of Professor Jarnefeld, Anatolia. After his time with the Spina, the professor returned to the colony, where with his team of next scientists, he single-handedly supplied the core of Anatolia's prosperity with the profits from his designs and creations. Some of these designs include the AMS Next control system, which the corporation still needed help with at this time. It's during this time of peace, however, that the daughter of Professor, a young woman by the name of Fiona Jarnefeld, would rescue a raven from his nest. It was not unusual, as these ravens were in fact mercenaries who piloted normals for corporations as colony guards, ever since their widespread use in the National Dismantlement War. But since then, they have either been forced into working for a corporation to fulfill basic needs, or join independent groups to survive, be they terrorists or warlords. What was strange about this raven was the fact he was piloting a Next, the new sign of power for the corporations. Even at this time, most corporations would not simply let one go. However, Fiona, she seemed to only care about the pilot, who seemed to be in bad shape and needed care, while the rest of the scientists of Anatolia did what any scientist would do. They recovered the damaged Next and transported it back to the colony, piece by piece. Sadly, even though the raven would recover, he would be unable to speak, leading him to become dependent on Fiona and the colony. The science team of Anatolia would rebuild the Next, but soon the years would catch up to Fiona's father, and after just 4 years, after the end of the National Dismantlement War, he would die, leaving the colony in trouble. For without the professor, the colony has lost its main income, leading to many of his team to leave Anatolia and take up new lives in a Spina, leading to more loss of income. This change put the colony of Anatolia into economic crisis, as without a way for them to buy food and resources, they would be forced to become a corporate-run colony, leading to a hard and cruel life. As such, the colony's welfare fell upon the shoulders of a man named Emil Gustav, a member of the professor's development staff. He, however, was no young man himself, and his knowledge on Next designs were nothing like the professor's. Instead, he was more a political player. The man had been the one to make the deals with the corporations for food and resources. He knew how these corporations thought. As such, he came up with a plan to help Anatolia. His plan was to use their now resident raven and his rebuilt Next as a mercenary for hire. It was a plan that rested the life of the colony solely on the shoulders of this raven, and with the fact these people had rescued him, what choice did the silent pilot have? Of course, being the kind young woman she is, Fiona at once seemed to argue with the political-minded elder. However, her young mind was no match for a man who dealt with the minds of far greater manipulation. As such, seeming to notice the care she held for this raven, Emil would put pressure on her too, explaining this is the only way, and that she would have to play her part too, as the operator of their mercenary for hire. In his own words, he even admits to using the raven and through him Fiona. After this, the preparations for the rise of Anatolia's mercenary, with Emil weaving his political mind and words, he manages to get their new mercenary a sponsor through Global Armaments. This corporation had started to fall behind the others in Next development, making them weaker in the eyes of the other corporations. And being the largest of them all, Its resources were spread across countries like America, Japan, China, and even some parts of Europe. Their forces were stretched thin, and they needed all the firepower they could. However, for this deal to be sealed, GA wanted to see this mercenary in action. As such, he was given his first mission, codenamed First Strike. This mission would have the mercenary go in alone against a large terror force that had set up shop in Griffin, an independent city which had been taken over by terrorists who wanted to use this place as a base of operations to strike back at their corporate overlords. Yet GA wanted to rebuild it for their own purposes. As such, with a transport plane supplied by GA, Anatolia's mercenary would be picked up from his home and be moved to the city. Anatolia's mercenary performance here would be enough to impress GA's representatives, who later would shake hands with Emil as the pair entered into this sponsorship. All the while, Fiona seemed to try and distance herself from the man she saved, with a professional attitude towards him. However, her worry could still be heard in her words. After this, Anatolia's mercenary would become a key part in taking down the largest terrorist group known to the corporations at the time, the Maghreb Liberation Front. Originating from White Africa, which is guessed to be located in South Africa, the front quickly grew to become a threat to the corporations, with two necks within their arsenal, normals and conventional forces. They spread across the world, with other groups joining the cause. Anatolia's mercenary would kill many of these terrorists who occupied normal producing factories to even power generation plants. Most would either die by the mercenaries' hands or flee for their lives, only to be hunted down by the corporation forces after. Anatolia's mercenary most notable missions during this time would be the takeover of two of the Mag Liberation's front bases, the Eritrean stronghold, where the front had been acquired nuclear missiles and was using it as a staging area to launch these attacks from, and the Geltz Fortress, a large, heavily armoured area believed to be located within a canyon near Marrakesh. It was used before the National Dismantle War in ethnic cleansing done by warlords. However, the Liberation Front moved in after and made it a key base in their operations. The defeat of one of the Liberation's most prized and heroic members, the Lynx, Amazic, he had proven himself a true force against the corporations and won many battles for the front when it began, making him a hero in their eyes. However, as famously said, all heroes must die, and Amazic's time would come by the hands of Anatolia's mercenary in the former Peace City, believed to be located in Saudi Arabia. It was to be an ambush where the mercenary would catch the hero whilst being transported by a large truck, leaving him unable to fight back. There are very different reports on what happened, with some claiming the mercenary managed to get the drop on the terrorist hero, while others will say he fought with the mercenary as he knew about the ambush. In the end, however, the hero and the main powerhouse of the front would die, leading the corporations to perform clean-up operations of the front soon after, leaving their numbers limited as Anatolia's mercenary's fame would only rise, as would his price. For all this time, Emil would not let the corporations underpay. The killing of such a figure made the mercenary worth more, which Emil would use to keep the pay coming, and the corporations seemed to accept this. However, this victory seemed to be all part of the corporation's plan. For all this time, the 6 corporations had kept up with their information war and development rivalry of Kojima technology. In fact, the front had been so well supplied thanks to them, funding them from the shadows to try and undermine each other. The front, however, had grown too strong. As such, they had to go, finally leaving the corporations no choice but to take matters into their own hands. Anatolia's mercenary will once again be brought into battles. However, this time the foes he had been fighting would be even more organized, as if they had military training. However, the Raven did not ask questions, leaving the talking to Emil and Fiona. The next few missions would see him attack a terrorist supply line with Omir flying normals as guards, protect a BFF icebreaker tanker from submarines, which are produced by Omir's science. However, the corporation claimed they had no idea about the attack. Of the Mag Liberation Front, who came for revenge. The death of Sus, the last Mag Liberation Front next, in a last stand. And finally, a mission codenamed Internal Purge. The mission's goal was this.
Let's confirm the mission. Destroy all of the new large-scale weaponry being built at GA Europe's Haida arsenal. The Haida facility has announced it is leaving the GA group. This operation is a matter of internal house cleaning. The ex-GAE guards should still be in the facility, but you have clearance to eliminate them if they endanger the mission. Keep in mind that Aquavit has supported the Haida arsenal for some time. It's possible they've offered some backup now as well. Those are your orders. We aren't sure of what it looks like in there. Watch your step.
It turns out all this time, the European branch of GA, named Global Armament Europe, had been working on Kojima technology. However, they had become almost zealots about the research. They even started to communicate and even share designs with a company called Aquavit, a company working with Railiard since the start of Kojima's discovery. The two wanted to break into the ballistic market in Europe, and by working with GAE, they hoped to do this. However, with GAE constantly blocking this idea, and even going as far to launch an attack on the main base of GAE, known as the Haida Arsenal, disguised as a terrorist group, some months ago, which was stopped by Anatolia's mercenary, who was hired by GAA. This time, the Global Armaments European branch decided to break away and join Aquavit of their own accord, which in turn threatened the market GAA had in the area. As such, this purge was issued, as the branch could not be allowed to take any information or tech with them. Anatolia's mercenary was ordered to take out the Sol Deus, GAE's latest war machine, and deal with the GA guards if they tried to stop him. And so the mercenary went. The attack was devastating, as with no Nex on site and all Sol Deuses still being worked on, the mercenary ripped through the normals on guard duty and destroyed the objectives, only to suddenly hear,
Unidentified Nex, closing in! Aquavit?
Fiona had picked up a Nex, expecting an Aquavit Nex. Both her and Anatolia's mercenary are surprised to discover that it was in fact a GA Nex. Was it here to help them? Sadly not, as soon the GA Nex opens fire on the mercenary, leaving him no choice but to fight back. The battle, however, is over just as fast as it began, as finally Fiona manages to get data on the defeated Nex, as Minoru, GA's ace Lynx, and an original Nex from the National Dismantlement War. This confuses her, as what would this mean? Did GA send one of their own to get rid of Anatolia's mercenary when he was done, or was this Nex an Aquavit spy who came to help her corporation? The truth may never be known, as Minoru would die there, and little did Anatolia's mercenary know that he had just started a war. For with this action, Aquavit came out swinging, claiming that the purge was a direct assault on them. It would be the first open conflict since the Pax's inception.
This, however, would echo through all the corporations who had once went to war without ideology or reason, turning the Earth into a battlefield once more, and in Emil's eyes, the perfect chance to gain more money for Anatolia through their well-known mercenary. Rumours of him being as powerful as any Lynx from the National Dismantlement War, who were known as originals, spread fast. Fiona dreaded this, as she knew the man she healed would be put into harm's way more, but of course, Emil could not see this, as he weaved his political skills once more to encourage the now warring corporations to hire their powerful Lynx. Anatolia's mercenary would soon sort again. His missions would see him take down other originals like Lambda from Leo Mechanica in the mission line of defense, Sedhana, the number 2 original from Iqbal, Critique from Ultra, a small company looking to expand its territory, along with reclaiming Griffin City from Leo Mechanica forces and destroying their power recycling plant, Megalus. This list, however, did not end here, as also during this early war phase, the mercenary would discover that Railiard had been developing a new type of Nex in an underground facility. Here he would battle 3 of these powerful new Nex, only to discover from Fiona that these Nex looked to be from her father's old designs. These Nex looked like the prototype Nex, a machine that killed its pilot from how much information it fed the pilot's brain and nerves. It also polluted the area it operated in with how much Kojima particles it released during use, making the professor destroy its plans and research. However, it seems Railiard would not let this machine of death die, and instead taking another professor's designs, the 002B, created these automated machines that were deadly even to Nex. It seems Railiard was willing to win by any cost. Anatolia's mercy had little time to rest, as once again he was soon sent out, taking down another original by the name of Mary Shelley from the Bernard and Felix Corporation, before finally performing a mission that would send the war between corporations into full force. The codename for this mission was Break the White Lance. Its details are this.
Destroy the Queen's Lance, BFF's flagship and acting headquarters. The Queen's Lance is nestled amid a massive defensive fleet. It's going to be nasty out there, but there's no avoiding it. The Queen's Lance is your only target. Ignore the rest of the fleet. Just be sure to sink that flagship. BFF is notorious for their highly centralized command structure. If this operation succeeds, they'll be dead in the water. This is an extremely important mission. Those are your orders. There's no turning back now.
The death of all high-ranking officials on the Bernard and Felix water-base headquarters, known as Queen's Lance. The mercenary would not disappoint, as fighting his way through the fleet that protected the Queen, he showed her no mercy as he blasted the boat, killing thousands inside and ending one of the 6 corporations that started this new world. It was a victory that shocked even Fiona, who at this point had allowed herself to grow closer to the mercenary, though now she admits she misses the day she saw him as something other than what he'd become. Yet the unstoppable Anatolia's mercenary and his operator had little time to rest, as soon their home became under attack from an unidentified large-scale destructive weapon in the underground gear tunnel that brought supplies to the colony. Picking this weapon up on radar, Fiona for the first time pleads with the mercenary to stop it. As always, this unrivaled mercenary does his job and stops the giant machine. This would later be found to be called the Ursara, a corporation-made weapon. It's this that sends shivers down the spine of Fiona as she realizes that their home is now a target for corporations, and their target has to be the colony's unstoppable mercenary, who has become a threat to all corporations with his skill and power. His actions had brought upon the start of the Lynx War, where Leonard and Archivit, feeling the pressure, gathered all their resources and launched surprise attacks on the corporations of GA, Omir Science, and Rosenthal. Countless colonies fell, and the Kojima contamination from these next went unchecked. These 3 would later enter into a truce and fight back, while Leo Mechanica hid away, letting the 5 fight. In the early stages of the Lynx War, Omir's force would be hit hard, resulting in them taking a defensive stance against the invading forces. It's here the mercenary would learn of another mercenary who seemed to share his skill in the next. Joshua O'Brien, from the colony of Aspina, and a face that Anatolia's mercenary could put to the white next, who came to his aid or hindered him a couple of times. The 2, however, had little time for words, as under Omir's orders, Joshua would head off into battle to aid their forces, while Anatolia's mercenary had his own missions. These would include cleaning up Bernard and Felix Remainers, including the heir to the corporation Francesca and her brother Eugene in a next battle, the occupation of several former BFF locations, including the Razgul Colony Subterranean Facility, the ZX Airport, and the Kojima Sphere Facility, whose ownership would fall under the alliance of GA, Omir Science, and Rosenthal during this time. At this, Anatolia's mercenary and Joshua would meet again in a mission codenamed Sol Dias, which asked the pair to destroy the new force of the same weapons from the Hida arsenal, only now they were complete and crushing colonies under their feet as they moved towards Sing, the biggest GA colony in Asia. At once the pair moved out, and again there are 2 accounts of what happened. One will tell you that the pair worked together to take out this force, and another will say that Joshua had to retreat due to damage, leaving Anatolia's mercenary to take care of the whole lot. However, the hard battles for Anatolia's mercenary kept coming, with a call to take out another original by the name of Anju, a Leonard next, who captured the Hazen facility, and had been luring next there to kill them. However, Anju would only cross swords with Anatolia's mercenary once, before he put her down. It's after this fight that Fiona comments how it sounded like Anju was having fun in that battle, and how relieved she is that the mercenary came out as the winner. It's here then that it seems the operator and the mercenary have become close, and this would seem to prove the case on the next mission. Mach Adu Suppliers. In this mission, the mercenary is tasked with working together with a Rosenthal and Omir ally next, namely Noblesse Oblige and Null, to take out the elite group of Leonard originals in the area. If they are taken out, Leonard would be without nexts. It's after all this is explained that Fiona has some words for her Raven.
Those are your orders. Don't die out there.
With that said, Anatolia's mercenary heads into battle. However, depending on reports, one will say that the mercenary got there in time and aided his fellow Lynx in defeating the Leonard nexts. However, there is another report, one that puts Anatolia's mercenary alone against the 4. This at once panics Fiona, who at once requests an immediate retreat. However, it seems Emil either pulls her away from her duty or takes over, as she goes into panic. For he tells the mercenary to carry on the mission, as the 4 will be weak after the battle with their 2 downed allies. This is, as far as anyone is concerned, a miracle or a real showcase of Anatolia's mercenary skill, as he manages to defeat all 4 of the Mechs as he comes to a stop finally to hear Emil say,
"All enemy Mechs destroyed. Mission accomplished. You really are unstoppable. Come on back. She's waiting for you here."
After returning to the transport, Fiona is stunned. She admits she is amazed at what the mercenary has just done, and how unfair it was to ask him of it. She even suggests that after all this is done, that she and him get away from this all. A wish to take away the man she saved from all his hardships. The young woman's wish, however, would have to wait, as the mercenary is called for one last job. To end this war, GA and Omir would order Joshua and Anatolia's mercenary take down the headquarters of Akavit and Raelianard. Joshua would take Akavit, while the mercenary would take down Raelianard. Both would succeed, and that day the Lynx War would come to a close, with the victors of this war taking their prizes from the fallen corporations, including scientists, tech, and land. Anatolia's mercenary job seemed to finally be done. He was granted leave with Fiona as Anatolia had accumulated enough cash to survive for the time being. However, it seems a certain corporation was not done with him quite yet, as after a small rest Anatolia would come under attack by an unknown foe. Fiona is the first to pick it up, and she seems shocked as she even tells the mercenary to stay back. But he goes out to meet his foe. By the time he arrives, however, this foe has already taken out most of the colony, and a sudden voice comes over the radio.
Hey. I guess there's little need for words.
The voice of Joshua O'Brien.
We're being hailed. It's White Flint. Opening a channel now.
This is White Flint. Hey, Raven. I've heard good things. Let's get this done.
Piloting the prototype next. It would later come out that Omir had blackmailed the young pilot into piloting the craft, because if he did not, his home colony of Espina would suffer greatly. He had no hatred towards his fellow mercenary, he just wanted to save his home. The 2 best fighters in this war clashed, and Anatolia's mercenary would come out the victor.
So, this is the end. This is for the best.
Yet this battle would not end here, even after the defeat of the prototype next, as suddenly an Omir next would attack. This Lynx, named Celio, came looking to kill the wounded mercenary. However, he would be the one to die here. As the mercenary stands there, over the flaming wreckage of his foes, catching his breath, a voice would come over his radio.
Hey, can you hear me? Thank you.
He had saved what he could of their home, and finally his time as Anatolia's mercenary would come to a close here. As Emil puts it best,
"She took him and left Anatolia. I had no right to stop them, no words to keep them here. I'll stop my telling here. It isn't my place to speak of what happened after that."
However, although it may not be his place, it is mine. For after this, Anatolia's mercenary tale would continue, and he would become a legend even the remaining corporations would come to fear. Armored Core Lore: The Story of Armored Core 4 and For Answer, Part 2.